Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 4 of the Monday Q&A, so let's do this. First question. Jason, going to uni this week and wondering whether it's worth going to the gym when hungover in terms of effects on recovery, strength, stamina, etc. Get your ass hydrated. Electrolyte drinks, water. It says uni, so you're probably here in the UK. Slam a bottle of Lucozade. Get some sugar in you, some electrolytes, lots of water fluid, get your ass to the gym. I don't want to hear these excuses. If you go out and party, doesn't mean you get to skip a training day unless you scheduled it already. Get in and train. I only recommend skipping training completely when you feel that there's a major injury potentially coming due to a very serious connective tissue inflammation, or if you have some sort of major viral infection. If you've got the flu or something that's going to be contagious to other people, go ahead and stay home from the gym. If you have a minor cold, you're feeling a little run down or tired, go ahead and train. Hell, you guys have seen me put training videos up to where I was slightly sick, wasn't feeling well, go ahead and train. Do the best that you can do. You might be surprised. The main thing is, though, with a hangover, get yourself hydrated for a couple hours first that morning before you go in and train. But that's not an excuse to miss a session if you're actually serious about your goals. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. In your opinion, what is the correct squat depth regardless of goals? Well, it is dependent upon goals, but I'm going to give you a general one. And any tips on knowing when you've hit depth, as like you, I work out alone, and the gym has no mirrors, thank you. Well, depth, it isn't irregardless of goals, because goals matter. If you're going to compete in Olympic lifting, you better be squatting ass to grass. If you're going to compete in powerlifting, you better squat to the depth that your federation requires. Now, for everyone else, for just general fitness, I'm going to say to parallel. And by parallel, that means the crease in your hip reaches the top of the knee. That's parallel. It's not based upon the top of your leg, because your leg shape and muscle mass will determine that. And for some people, it's going to look completely different for different people. So parallel is where most people want to go. That's your basic squat. Parallel squat is where most people need to be going, as your baseline to start with. Now, as far as finding when you're there, cameras. In fact, you shouldn't be using a mirror. You should never be looking at a mirror when you squat, in my opinion, at all. And if you're turning to the side with a weight on your back, you're just asking to be hurt. So you'd never use a mirror for this anyways. You use cameras. Ideally, and most of you have cameras on your cell phones at this point. You don't need a nice expensive camcorder like I use for these videos. Find your depth, and if you're struggling to find your depth, you can use plates, you can use boxes, you can even run bands in the lower part of the squat rack across the bottom, so that you're set up to where when you feel your butt make contact with these objects, it equals where you saw it in the picture on your phone being parallel. And you could actually take the pictures while touching these things with your butt to learn the appropriate heights to set them at. If when you stack 3 20-kilo plates and your butt makes contact with them, and on the camera at that point you're at parallel, you will always know that when your butt makes contact with 3 plates, that you've hit parallel if you put them under you till you get used to it. Until you build enough muscle mass that certain muscles get in the way, and when certain muscles contact other muscles, like your hamstrings on your calves, then you know you're at parallel. Until you get big enough to where you're at that point, you can always use objects like that as reference. And bands work really, really well across the bottom of a rack. All right, next question. Does fuckarounditis include being overly fearful of bad deadlift form? I'm strong enough to add weight, but I'm sometimes fearful my form will break down and therefore stay at certain weights longer than I perhaps otherwise would. It really depends on what you're training for. For a competitive powerlifter, really those big form breakdowns that you're thinking of some bad form with some extra rounding that you might not want, should be reserved probably for max effort lifts or even competition. There's no need to necessarily do that if you're just training for general strength or general fitness, general hypertrophy sports. However, the thing that you can remember is that you don't necessarily have to push the deadlift that hard to make progress on it. You can do lots of volume even with singles if need be, or doubles on the deadlift with submaximal weights down as low as 70 or 80% of what your true max would be, with plenty of volume, and you'll still get a better max deadlift as long as you're keeping up your squats and your other accessory work, things like barbell rows and stuff, your deadlift will still continue to go up without you actually having to hit the maxes. So you don't necessarily have to push yourself to a max effort deadlift if you are worried about that, for it to happen. But the thing is, video it. If you're worried about your form breaking down, take a camera, set it up to the side, watch what happens in the video as you slowly progress and add weight. And use that to assess what's going on if you feel that you're doing an unsafe deadlift. So it is something you should be concerned about, but it shouldn't be something that you obsess about to the point to where it's holding your progress back. It's not fuckarounditis if you're legitimately trying to avoid injury when it comes time to, should I add more weight to an exercise like the deadlift. But you need to be cautious about it, but don't let it scare you. Devise a strategy to work around it. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 5.